tech writer for Forbes Asia, and thank you all for being here. I have the pleasure to have Jed McCaleb and Patrick Dye here with me today. These two are some of the most influential people in their respective spaces in the crypto scene. I think crypto was like this mysterious niche just 5 years ago, but nowadays it's impossible to ignore. So these two have had really dynamic careers and have had a lot of ups and downs, just like the market itself. So hopefully we can hear about some of their lessons learned and use the past to predict the future. So why don't we start with Jed? I think that some Koreans might remember something that you worked on many years ago called eDonkey. So could you tell us a little bit about what eDonkey was and how the game Magic the Gathering inspired your next project?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so eDonkey was a file sharing application that allowed you to trade files I think it was launched in 1999 and ran till about 2006. It was, for whatever reason, it got really big in Korea, so maybe some of you or some of you probably used it. Yeah, after eDonkey, what was the question?
How did the game Magic the Gathering inspire your next project?
Yeah, so it didn't exactly inspire it, but yeah, eventually after eDonkey, I worked on a few other things, and and eventually I learned about Bitcoin, and I had a domain called Mt. Gox laying around, which was from an old Magic the Gathering site that I had built years before that, and created the first Bitcoin exchange. So, yeah.
Okay, and so basically the first Bitcoin exchange was hosted on mtgox.com. Back then, Bitcoin was pretty niche, not nearly what it is these days. What was the scene like back then? What did people look at Bitcoin like?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a very, very different world. I think when I launched Mt. Gox, I think there was 2,000 people on Bitcoin Talk, which meant that there was 2,000 people that knew about Bitcoin at the time. So it was I think everybody involved at that point thought it was a super awesome idea, but it was very unclear what it would take or if the world would embrace it. I think we all thought it would take a much longer time than it ultimately has, and we've all kind of been shocked at how fast it's been adopted. Yeah, so for me, I built it just as kind of a hobby project to start learning about Bitcoin, and I wanted to be able to buy it, and there was no good way to buy it at that point. So I made an exchange, and it took off. When
did you see it take off so quickly?
I mean, it was pretty immediate, just because take off as in the 2,000 people involved liked it, but yeah. So by today's standards, it's very small, but in terms of percentage of people trading Bitcoin, it was big at the time. I only ran it for a few months before handing it over to the guy in Japan, who ultimately was pretty incompetent, but yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of that, right, so you handed over Mt. Gox, and then it sort of succumbed to a few hacks, and so could you clarify what happened during that whole period with Mt. Gox?
Sure, yeah, I mean, I wasn't involved after early 2011, and so Mark ran it. Apparently, I mean, I don't really know much more than anyone else. I didn't really talk to him after I sold it to him. But apparently, someone hacked his thing, and Bitcoins are being stolen over the course of years from him, which seems outrageous to me that he wouldn't have noticed. But I guess it is what it is. So it's pretty frustrating for me, because I think if it had been run by anyone else, it could have been a much better story.
That's a shame. So you did have a lot of passion for Mt. Gox, but then you started thinking about different ideas, and over the years you eventually came to the idea of Ripple. So could you tell us about that, and what was so revolutionary about Ripple?
Sure, yeah. So like I said, when I first learned about Bitcoin, I was super excited about it. The cool thing about Bitcoin is that basically there's a public ledger out there that everyone can see, but no one can change arbitrarily. And this is a very powerful idea that you can do lots of things with it. But unfortunately, it has this mining process that's super expensive and has a lot of other drawbacks. And so I started to think of, as a computer scientist, you kind of always think of ways to improve these systems. And so I tried to think of other ways to solve this consensus algorithm, and kind of came up with the idea that ultimately led to Ripple and then Stellar. And basically, it's just another way to solve the consensus problem. So it's another way to have this public ledger that everyone can see, but no one can change arbitrarily, that doesn't use mining. So it's way more efficient, and so it's cheaper and faster, and you can ultimately do other things with it. So.
Okay, and so since we're on limited time, I want to go to your latest acts. You and Joyce Kim, who is the fund manager of SparkChain, you two co-founded Stellar as a money exchange protocol. So what was your initial vision for that, and how has your vision grown?
Sure, yeah. So the original idea, or the idea is to make an internet-level protocol for payments, to make all the different financial institutions and payment networks be able to work together seamlessly. Because right now, the payment networks are very balkanized, right? There's lots of different ones. There's like ACH in the US, SEPA in Europe, and you know, Swift, like Alipay. None of these things communicate with each other. So the idea behind Stellar is to create a world where it's much more like the internet, where it doesn't matter what someone's financial institution is or what currency they're using. All these things should like work seamlessly together. So that's what we're building, basically.
And so now you've gathered the confidence of a lot of major companies like IBM and so what makes Stellar so trustworthy to these big companies?
Yeah, so we recently announced a partnership with IBM. We as a company work mainly with smaller remittance companies, but IBM is putting together this consortium of banks. So I think they have like 30 or so banks signed on right now where they're trying to do cross-border payments between them. It's a lot of international banks. And I think what's interesting to them is that, you know, we are this open source nonprofit foundation. So it's very similar to Linux Foundation. So it's something that's open and neutral. Everyone can kind of, you know, everyone can see what we're doing. And you like, if you imagine, this is kind of the only way that this system can be built. Like if you imagine the internet built by a for-profit company, it would be a very different world. And because we're structured this way, it allows companies like IBM to just to use the standards. Like, so it makes it's much more similar to the way internet standards are built. So
what exactly is the way that Stellar helps people in developing world?
Yeah, so ultimately what we're building will connect any person on the planet, right? So right now, you know, money works okay in like, you know, places in the developed world, like places like Korea and the US, like it's easy to send money to people. But in places like Nigeria, you know, 60% of the people don't have bank accounts. The remittance fees are super expensive and people depend on them. They get charged like 10% to send money abroad. So something like Stellar is very beneficial for them because it makes them kind of on an even playing field. So it's very much like when the internet came along, you know, some people already had access to information, but the internet gave everyone on the planet access to information and basically benefited people that were like further from the center more than others, right? So it's a similar situation here where it basically is going to help everyone, but the people that it helps the most are kind of the unbanked and people that are kind of left out of the current system.
That's going to be very interesting to see in the near future. So one thing that recently happened is that Stellar was listed on the Korean exchange GoPax. So congratulations. You can go buy some here in Korea. So where is Stellar going in the next few years?
Yeah, so we're focused mainly on solving this cross-border use case where, you know, basically the idea is that if you want to send money cross-border, there's lots of friction and pain in the world today to doing that. So we want to make it super simple, and we're basically onboarding lots of remittance companies all over the world, mainly focused on Southeast Asia and Africa, and we're just going to kind of grow that network over the next year or so.
All right, that sounds great, and I definitely look forward to seeing how this shakes out in the end. So meanwhile, another interesting story going on in China. Okay. Here's Patrick. And so back in 2012, so you were working at Alibaba, then you stopped working at Alibaba and you went to grad school, but you dropped out of grad school because you became enamored with the Bitcoin scene. So what was it about Bitcoin that changed you or that inspired you?
I want to correct something. So I wanted to work for Alibaba in 2014.
Whoops.
So, but in 2012, I started my. At that time, I was still preparing my PhD degree in one of the best university in China. So at that time, my PhD topic, my PhD research topic is about peer-to-peer network, but it's about how to transfer the multimedias on the peer-to-peer network. And one day, like I found the Bitcoin, and I find oh, that's something I need to work in that industry. So that's something very exciting. And at the very beginning, I started the business as one of the biggest Bitcoin miner in China. So we running a few mining farm in China. Yeah, so that's how the whole career started. Yeah, since 2012, when I was still the students there.
So why do you think the crypto craze just latched on so strongly in China?
You mean the mining business, all the crypto? Yeah. At that time, I think part of the reason because China have the cheaper electricity, we have the cheaper labors, we have the cheaper like the manufacture equipment. So basically, the China they control like 70% of the mining business in the whole world.
Oh, and then that eventually led to a lot of trading volume in China.
I mean, the trading right now, no more trading in China anymore. Because
in the past, I mean. before the past few months. But early on, China was a big early adopter.
Yeah, 90% of Bitcoin volume happened in China earlier.
Why?
Because I think, because in China, all the exchanges, they have the high-frequency trading. They have the trading bot to generate the volume. So some of the volume, I mean, generated by the machine. It's not by the people. Yeah.
Okay. So before you launched Qtum, you also had a project called BitBay, which was also a subject of scrutiny for a few alleged scams that went on. Could you clarify what happened there? Was it a scam?
It's like empty ghosts. So I also trade in empty ghosts, and I lose some Bitcoin. Yeah, so that's something like, you know, that's something happened in 2012, in 2013. All the people they participated in the Bitcoin network. They are anonymous. They are using the alien's name. Like no one knows who is Satoshi. No one knows who is Satoshi Nakamoto. So in 2013, in 2014, I meet a few people online, and I feel, oh, the people they are pretty talented. But you know, you never know. And I didn't even meet the people in person. And okay, we have the interest. Oh, we want to start some project. And then it turned out like some of the people they have the better intention. So they get most of the money, and I take the blame from the community. That's something happened. Yeah.
Did you manage to clear your name?
I mean, that's also part of my idea. Like, I do not want to really explain to people what happened. I mean, the only thing you can explain to people is like to do a better work, to do more efforts, to bring more value to what you are doing right now. That's the best response. Yeah.
I think a great example of that is your launch of Qtum.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us about what is Qtum and how did it get so damn popular?
Yeah, I mean, it's personally, I mean, part of the reason is because we have a lot of technical innovations.
Wait, first of all, what is Qtum?
Oh, okay. Qtum is like it's like, in short words, it's a better Bitcoin. It's also even a better Ethereum. Yeah, I mean, technically speaking. But as you know, all the cryptocurrency is not really about the technology. It's about how big your community, how big the community economy. So basically, it's a proof of stake smart contract platform based on the Bitcoin's originally innovation. We added the smart contract ability to the Bitcoin network.
Okay.
That's Qtum. Yeah.
So now, how did it get so popular?
Because we have a very great ICO. I mean, Bitcoin take 5 years to become a unicorn platform. Bitcoin take 5 years to become $1 billion. Ethereum take 2.5 years to become a $1 billion platform, and Qtum only take like 6 months to become a $1 billion platform.
So what was your secret sauce to a successful ICO?
Earlier, we built the best influential in China and in the Asian market. We did the best technology innovation and also the best branding in Asian market. I think that's part of the reason. Yeah.
Oh, Okay, lots of branding and public relations?
Yes.
Okay. So I think a lot of people in Korea are quite curious about the Chinese market, which has a lot of influence on what goes on in Korea. So what do the Chinese crypto scene think of the Korean crypto scene?
The Chinese people, I mean, before I came here, people were asking me, oh, why always is the Korean market leading the price? Some of the Chinese people, they say, oh, maybe there's going to be a war very soon. So that's a part of the reason like people are buying Bitcoin, because if something really happens, the only thing you can keep the value, you can bring the value with you is the cryptocurrency. You can take it out to other countries. All the other fiat money, it's left in the bank. Yeah. That's a part of the reason, maybe.
Okay, not the answer I was expecting, but okay, great. So, also, China has been an early adopter of strong regulations. Obviously, they banned ICOs, they've banned trading, and it looks like Korea wants to adopt similar policies. The FSC recently said that it wanted to ban ICOs. So do you think that the Chinese regulations will stick?
Right now it's a stick, but personally I think it's not smart at all. Because, I mean, the cryptocurrency, they are building a new paradigm for people, how they cooperate, how they organize our society resource, how we organize the talent. They can create a more transparent, a more efficient economy based on the blockchain protocol. So if the country have a very strict regulation on all these kind of innovations, that will make the country fall behind. That's my personal understanding. So personally, I believe no matter what the government they do on the crypto will keep growing up. Yeah.
But people are trading anyway, right?
Yeah, people are trading anyway. Yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, in China, like people are trading like we call it the OTC trading, over the counter. So you can even today you can still buy Bitcoin, buy Qtum, buy Ethereum, buy any other crypto, but not from the exchange platform, peer-to-peer trading. It's back to the original idea of Bitcoin, peer-to-peer network with peer-to-peer trading.
Okay, so Qtum is actually based in Singapore, but China is obviously very important to Qtum. And so with this ban, how have you had to change your strategy?
Yeah, it's bringing some bad influence for the quantum ecosystem for sure. Because earlier we put a lot of resources, a lot of efforts in China, and even before the ICO regulation, I was talking to all the regulators, all the central bank in China. But then the things still happen. But I think, I mean, it have some bad influence, but not that big, because all the blockchain project, no matter you want it or not, it's a global project. Because the blockchain is a public ledger. It's it's a permissionless blockchain. Everyone can join the network without your permission. Yeah, so it's a global network. And today we have people from 57 countries. They are running the network. We have more than 160 phone nodes on the internet. Yeah, people from many countries, they are working on the network.
Including Korea.
Yeah, Korea is the second highest amount of the phone nodes in the world map. The U.S. market is the biggest. The second one is Korea.
So Korea is the second biggest market for
Qtum. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Does anybody know the answer?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I think because when we started the ICO, a lot of people from Korea, they participated in the ICO, and with the very bullish market, the people, they made maybe 40 times profit or 50 times profit, and the people are happy here, so that's maybe part of the reason. Yeah.
Wow, okay, so what are your next steps for Qtum? What do we see in the next couple of years?
For the next step for Qtum, we are still focused on the technical innovations. We are implementing the Lightning Network, and also we are developing a new virtual machine, the Qtum x86 virtual machine. So we hope through the Qtum x86 virtual machine, people, they can use C language, C++ to write the smart contract. From what I can see, that's the only way we can leverage all these traditional IT developer. They can join in the blockchain industry, and we can push the smart contract to the mainstream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So both of you have experienced a huge number of ups and downs in your time in the crypto scene, even in the past 7 years. And you've been involved in scams or scandals.
Yeah.
Whether or not you were responsible for them, it's pretty bad for PR. So how did you overcome those?
No, sometimes it's good for PR.
Okay. Sometimes it's good for PR. Hey, any news is good news,
Yeah,
right?
bad news, good news, always good news for crypto.
I mean, you ended up on the Forbes 30 under 30 anyway, so.
Yeah, also the Forbes 30 under 30.
With all these scams or scandals and bad news, how do you overcome that news and sort of clear your reputation? What would be some of your words of advice for handling that kind of news for a protocol manager?
Yeah, I think a lot like what Patrick had said is basically you just have to keep building and keep making things and let your work speak for itself. I mean, ultimately, if you're doing something that's worthwhile and people like, then it will catch on and people will understand that maybe you didn't have anything to do with the scandal.
Yeah, for me, I think because I'm pretty young, I'm 27, so I think I learned a lot from all these past 5 years in crypto. It's very, very crazy, and that's. But you know, as an entrepreneur, you still need to have a very strong mind and also very strong heart. And all the pressure you take, all the blame you take, can make you stronger. And when something else happens, you know how to deal with the stuff. You learn from the lesson. Yeah.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's true. Yeah.
Key point. Okay. So way back when, especially in the days of Mt. Gox, you may have predicted a few problems in the way blockchain is structured that are coming to a head today. So what were you foreseeing back then that is true now?
Yeah, I mean, like Bitcoin obviously has some pretty fundamental scalability limits. Back then, nobody had come up with the idea of Lightning. If they do get the Lightning system together, then that's one way around it. But if they don't, then Bitcoin is probably like maxed out. But I think that they'll eventually figure it out. But it's clear that it needs to, like, it's pretty much saturated right now. And unless they can figure out a way to scale it past this, then it's kind of where it is, right? So, yeah.
Okay, and so yes, there's a lot of excitement these days, and things seem to be hugely chaotic, especially with ICOs. There's a boom, obviously. Does that mean that there's a lot of innovation in the blockchain space?
Yeah, I mean, we have many crazy ICO, but I mean, that's something we have to go through in the industry early stage. It's like back to 1920 in the Wall Street stock market. There are so many useless stocks, but people are still crazy. And from that bubble, we learn from we make the industry better. Like in 2000, like we have the internet bubble, but also Baidu, Facebook or Google, they reborn from the bubble. So that's something is happening in crypto right now. I believe there are going to be a crash, but the real good startup, the real good company, they will reborn from all these crash.
Yeah, I mean, I largely agree. I mean, I think obviously the hype is like way preceding what these things can actually deliver at this point. And there's a lot of these things. I mean, most of the ICOs, probably like 90% of them are just kind of nonsense, and you should never put money in them. But
maybe 95.
Yeah, but
I heard 99.
but there are a couple that make sense. And I think eventually there will be some shakeout where the ones with merit will kind of rise to the top, and then people kind of understand how to evaluate this stuff. Yeah. But it's who knows when that will come.
So for people like me, what would you say? How do you suss out the good ICOs from the bad?
It's very hard.
Yeah, people ask me this all the time, like which crypto to buy or what ICO to buy, and I think it's extremely hard because all of this stuff is very technical, and you have to have like a very good understanding of how it works fundamentally. because a lot of this stuff, marketing stuff that they put on the website, is very hand wavy, and if you don't have a CS background, it's hard to pierce through the BS basically. So I don't know. There's not a good answer. Yeah, maybe an ICO fund. I don't know.
Yeah, should I just not
yeah,
invest
maybe
in
put
new
some money
crypto?
into the ICO fund. Yeah, it's maybe a good idea. I mean, my understanding is like, 3 years ago, we still have the valuation model, like how we can calculate how much one platform will worth or how much is the cryptocurrency. It's a valuation. We have a valuation model earlier because everyone is very technical back to 5 years ago on Bitcoin Talk. All these guys are very technical, but right now, it's crazy market. It's never about the technology anymore because technically speaking, there is no difference with Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Dogecoin, Litecoin. All these coins, it's based on Satoshi's work. It's all the source code, it may be only 200 lines of source code difference. So it's not about the technology anymore. Because the technology already have a very big innovation. Like everyone is driving the car, it's supposed much faster than the people who are riding the horse. So we are all on the car, on the train right now. So it's never about the technology anymore. It's about because basically like the paper dollar or paper RMB, it's the same paper. So the technology is the same. They are using the same paper. Yeah. So everything. So that's the crazy part of the crypto right now. 90% is about speculation. Maybe 95% is about the value is about a speculation. Yeah, that's a truth. So sometimes even a very hard-working team, they have the best technology, but they still have they have the lowest market cap. Yeah.
Right, so speaking of speculation, now Bitcoin is at, what, 13,000 or so?
Yeah. 15, yeah.
Oh, 15, man, I can't even keep up anymore. Right, so Jed, you had once said a few years ago that Bitcoin would reach 30,000. Do you think that is still possible?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember saying that, but it's possibly true. But
it was in the New York Times. It happened.
All right. But yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly possible that Bitcoin could reach 30,000. I think, like I said, I think if they don't solve the scalability issues, then it doesn't have much room to go past what it is now. But maybe they'll solve the scalability issues. So.
Is that like a good thing?
That it goes up that high? I don't know, good or bad. It's kind of agnostic thing. Yeah, it's just a number.
I will tell you some funny story in the Chinese market. Yeah, so basically in China, all the long-term Bitcoin holder, they believe like one Bitcoin they can buy a house in Beijing or Shanghai. That's their prediction, and that's also their expectation. That's like one Bitcoin. A house in Shanghai is like maybe $1 million. So they think maybe one Bitcoin will worth $1 million in the near future. They will not sell until they can buy a house in Shanghai.
Man, I should start buying some Bitcoin so I can retire in China, eh? So say I wanted to get in on an ICO as an entrepreneur. What would your advice be to me as an entrepreneur wanting to launch an ICO?
Well, I think you need to be, well, at least in the U.S., I think you need to be very careful. There's a lot of regulation around it, and I think a lot of the people doing ICOs in the United States are kind of not following it, and I think there will eventually be some backlash about that. So I think just make sure you have a good lawyer. I would say, and also please make sure that your project actually makes sense and needs a token because most of them don't. So and I think the runway for just being able to put up a white paper and raise like millions of dollars is coming to an end. So I think if you're going to do it now, you actually need to have something a little more fundamental.
Okay, have substance.
Yeah, I think it's still the best timing to do the ICO. I mean, with a lawyer protecting you, you can do the ICO, and that's still the best timing. Because the reason is not because compared to the venture capital, to the traditional investment model, all the founders, they control 80% of the company. They control 80% of their company share. But on the ICO model, you give out 80% to the community. So more and more people, they are helping you. For Qtum, take an example. We have 7,000 angel investor. I mean, we have 7,000 people from 20 countries. They participate in our ICO. That's all our angel investor. You know, all the angel investor, you do not want your company die. When you see something go wrong, you will find the founder to tell him, oh, you should do something much better. Yeah. So the ICO is something, you know, you can embrace the community, you can embrace the people. And you design the reward structure, you design the founding model for the whole company in long term. So I mean, for the ICO, it's more easier to success than you get the money from the traditional VC. No matter how powerful the venture capital, they still have limited influence. But all the ICOs, you have investor from maybe 10 countries, 20 countries. That's something really different.
Okay, let me close with one final question for you guys. On the big picture, obviously we're in the middle of a craze right now, and there's probably going to be a big shakeup. So what is, after the shakeup and things start to correct themselves, what is the blockchain world that you hope will end up? What is the world you want to see?
Yeah, so I think like through my whole career, I've like tried to build things like technology that like democratizes access to either information or now finance, and I hope that blockchain is used as sort of a way to make the world a little bit of a more fair place and like reduce the concentrations of power, because right now, particularly in money and payments, there's a lot of gatekeepers that you have to go through. And I think if we can get rid of those and just make it kind of this even playing field, like everybody will be much better off and there'll be more freedom in general. So that's what I hope that blockchain can achieve, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, so my understanding is like, let's back to the Bitcoin's original idea. Right now we are living in a real world, it's a real economy world, like with a very high inflation, the fiat money. That's a part of the reason why we have Bitcoin. The Satoshi, the original idea, he wanted to create a fixed supply of the money supply. So this is a parallel economy world. That's a parallel world with a fixed supply. This is the real world with the inflation supply. So which side you wanted to choose? You make your decision. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jed and Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all. You've been a great audience.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.